YouTube. Now I'm going to be reading Chapter 11 of the book called Prisoner B-3087, starting on page 80. Chapter 11. Uncle Moshe couldn't believe it when I showed him the money and the earrings. He hugged me and kissed me before remembering his own warning not to let anyone else see you care about anything. "I know a man who works in the munitions plant," Uncle Moshe whispered. "He smuggled in bread sometimes and sells it for a price. I'll buy us a little something to eat. You saved us, Yannick." Later that night, Moshe brought me half a loaf of bread, a feast. He took it out from under his shirt and gestured for me to hide it quickly. "You mustn't let any of the other prisoners see you with it. They'll try to take it. And don't share it with anyone. Not if you want to survive, right?" I nodded. "The money will buy us more," Moshe whispered. "I've hidden the rest to keep it safe." "Where?" I asked. "I have a place no one will find." "The capo," someone near a window said. Someone always gave a warning when one of our overseers was coming. "I'll see you tomorrow," Moshe said. "Remember what I told you. Don't let anyone see." "I won't." Uncle Moshe slipped out, and I climbed into my bunk. The bread lay against my cold skin. It wasn't warm anymore, the bread, but my heart beat faster and my mouth watered as the thought of eating it. An extra half a load. In Plazo I was a rich man, which suddenly struck me as funny. Before the war, there had been loaves of bread aplenty, always one or two in the kitchen, brought back fresh from the bakery every day by my mother, and I had never thought twice about them. Now a half a loaf of bread was life itself, and my mother was gone. The capo did his checks to make sure everyone was in their bunks. He didn't have to worry about the man in the bunk below mine. The man beneath me had crawled back after roll call and hadn't moved since. He was what the others called a muscle man. He was so thin you could count his ribs and see the bones in his arms and legs. But it wasn't just that. We were all skin and bones. Muscle manners were different in the way they breathed through their mouths, in the way they dragged their feet when they walked, if they could walk. Most of them just huddled on the ground on their hands and knees, even if the Germans or capos beat them. But no matter how he was standing, you always knew a muscle man from his eyes. There wasn't anything left. Muscle manners had given up, and there was no life in their expression, no spark of soul. They were zombies, worked and starved into a living death by our captors. If the man below me wasn't dead when they came for us tomorrow, the morning roll call would kill him. Half a loaf of bread might have saved him if he could even eat it. Starvation did that to you after a while. Your body got so used to not having food, it got sick of you if you ate even half a bowl of soup. I could hear him down there breathing his ragged breath. I could hear him dying of starvation. And I had food, half a loaf of bread, if I just gave him part of it. But Moshe had warned me, don't share with anyone else, not if you wanted to survive, not if you wanted to make sure you never became a muscle man yourself. So I huddled on my bunk, sneaking bites of bread in the dark, listening to the nameless man beneath me die. My old apartment building was finished, but there were other buildings to clean in the ghetto. We worked for days, and I looked for hidden money and valuables wherever I went, but there was nothing. The place had already been picked clean before the liquidation. The Nazis had seen to that. One night, Uncle Moshe brought me a carrot he'd bought with the money I'd found in the old coats. A whole carrot. I hadn't had a carrot since the early days in the ghetto. It was soft and mushy, but it was the most delicious thing I had ever eaten. I was sure there was still money left, Moshe told me, lots of it. Even if I never found more money, we could keep buying a little extra fruit here and there for quite a while. Long enough maybe to survive. There were rumors to Russians and Germans had abandoned their pact and were at war with each other now, making Hitler fight the English and French and Americans in the West, and the Russians in the East. One way or another, people whispered, we would be free by year's end. And I couldn't believe it. Wouldn't believe it. Not until I saw an American or Russian tank rolling down the road. In the meantime, thanks to the money Moshe and I had hidden away, we would survive, no matter how long it took. One evening, when we returned to camp from cleaning the ghetto, I asked the boy on my barracks who worked inside Plazo what the score was that day. He looked away and wouldn't answer me. "What's wrong?" I asked him, but still he said nothing. I spun him around. "Hey, Thomas, why won't you tell me? What's the score?" "Just one," Thomas said, looking at his feet. "Who is it? Someone we know?" "It was your uncle," he said at last. "The man who comes to visit you at night." I staggered back, knocking my head on my bunk. "No," I told him. "No, that's impossible. You're wrong. Moshe, he doesn't work in the camp. He works at the furriers outside Plazo. You saw someone else." Thomas shook his head. "They closed the furriers and reassigned all workers inside the camp. Your uncle was made leather." Sorry, I messed up. "They closed the furriers and reassigned all the workers inside the camp. Your uncle was made leader of a group breaking rocks. When Goeth demanded to know how much work he had been done." "What? Tell me," I demanded. My stomach was squeezing itself into a hard knot of fear. Thomas shook his head. Goeth didn't like his answer. "No," I told him. "No, you're wrong. Moshe went to work today at the furriers, like always. You'll see. It was someone else. I'm sorry, Yannick. It was someone else. You'll see at roll call." But Uncle Moshe wasn't at roll call. I searched for him where we usually met, and I looked up and down and rose for him. Nothing. I wanted to call out for him, but I knew that was suicide. Moshe had taught me. Do nothing to stand out. I had to be anonymous. I had to be no one, with no name, no personality, no family or friends to care about. But I did care. Uncle Moshe was the last of my family, the only person I could trust in Plazo, my only friend. And the money I had found. Moshe had hidden it. He had never told me where. I'd never thought to press him on it, because Moshe would always be there. We were going to survive, the two of us. We were going to survive. The last 2 men in Gruner family written on the pages of the world. Now there was only me, Yannick. I was 14 years old. I was alone in the world again, this time for good. As the Nazis went through roll call, I fought back my tears. If Eamon Goeth saw me crying, he would kill me too. If you want to hear Chapter 12 of Prisoner B-3087, look for my next video.